Hello and welcome to the Victoria 3 segment of my Portugal to Brazil Paradox Interactive Historical Playthrough Mega Series. I'm Admiral Jedi. Thanks for watching. We are going to start the very beginning of the Victoria 3 segment, no longer playing as Portugal to Brazil, but just straight Brazil. Let's get it going. So while we're loading up, let me run you through if you've never watched my videos before. I've got 3 standard disclaimers that I'm going to make. Disclaimer number 1, this is not a tutorial video. This is a historical playthrough video. I will not teach you how to play this game, but I hopefully will teach you a little bit of history, as is hopefully relevant to this wonderful nation of Brazil that I'm playing. I have read up on some of their history as best as I can possibly do, and I will talk about my source materials a little bit later, but what I'm going to do is try to play as historically accurately as possible. That happened way faster than I thought it was going to. The second disclaimer is I am not Brazilian or Portuguese, and I'm an American, and so I may not have full cultural sensitivity and awareness to various issues surrounding this wonderful nation. So if I screw anything up, go ahead and leave comments in the YouTube section. Please, kindness is always welcome but not required. And the third is a reminder that this is history, and I'm going to be mirroring historical choices as much as I possibly can, including some things that are not desirable, like slavery, the marginalization of minorities and women, and all sorts of nastiness. So I'm not going to be super excited about any of those decisions, but where I have a choice between doing what I might think is right versus what historically happened, I'm going to make the historical choice. Let's get started with all those disclaimers out of the way. And before we dive right in, like I said, I will share with you what my source material is. In addition to various Googling and Wikipediaing, though I'm now a huge Grok fan at this point, so I'm going to say in addition to Grokking and Wikipediaing and Googling, I am reading A Concise History of Brazil by Boris Fausto and Sergio Fausto, second edition. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up there for you so you can see, as well as a link to that book in the comments. That is where I'm getting my material from. So I think the first thing we're going to do is kind of take a look around, see what we can see. One of the first things that I was interested in is this young child who looks like a man. Anyway, gotta love that face. We'll talk about him in just a minute. The emperor. That this is a constitutional empire, and I was surprised to learn, like much of things that I never knew about Portugal/Brazil. We're done talking about Portugal. Let's just talk about Brazil, all right? Is how really unique they are and were in the middle of everything. And one of the things that I learned was that they were the only monarchy in all of Latin America. So see here, oligarchy, republic, junta, okay, republic, dictatorship, I mean, kind of like a monarchy, right? But really not officially. Republic. Well, that's yeah. Well, okay, that's because that's cheap. That's a colony. That's up here, right? But like an actual nation that was a monarchy, Brazil was the only one, at least for a while. And so that was kind of cool. All right, let's talk about the kid. So this is Dom Pedro II, who is the son of Dom Pedro I, who was the emperor of Brazil upon its declaration of independence. You know, to this day, I still don't know why it's called an empire. As a Crusader Kings player, it's like, for us, empire is always like multiple kingdoms. I mean, I guess because there was the Kingdom of Portugal and Brazil, but that's not really true because Brazil was declared independent. So I'm not really sure. So if anybody knows why it was called an empire, I'd like to hear that. Drop me a comment and let me know. Even in the reading, I never figured this out. Let's get back to the kid. So as Dom Pedro I was reigning, he exercised what was called moderating power, where there were local governments. Every local area could have their own kind of government. And they were not super strongly centralized. They were somewhat decentralized. But this moderating power, I think, is somewhat of an interesting euphemism for basically it was like a monarchical veto. That's how I describe it. That the phrase moderating power was used like, yeah, if these other governments or these other local governments do anything kind of crazy, we can, quote unquote, moderate them. Which is, basically meaning like control them. So, why am I looking here? I'm looking for... Okay, I finally remember what I was going to talk about. And that is, I was going to look in here and look at the status of our bureaucrats. So, I'm glad that we are with appointed bureaucrats. Because this is what was going on. Now, hereditary bureaucrats would have been like the concept of the Duke. Right? Now, obviously, it's somebody who's like the Minister of War, but those positions could be hereditary. And Pedro I set it up so that they were not hereditary. He could grant titles to people. He could appoint them, Minister of War, Minister of Finance, whatever, but it was a non-hereditary title. And so that was brought together in the middle of his inner circle known as Conselho de Estado. My Portuguese is always going to suck. I apologize. I'm trying. And so that his inner circle could basically, quote unquote, moderate the decisions of the states. And that led to a growth in liberalism, who eventually demanded Pedro I's abdication. And it was this group here, I'm going to assume, the intelligentsia or the liberal groups, who demanded his abdication. Now, this looks like a famous dude here, historical character, Diogo Antonio Feijó. Let me look that up and see. Yeah, that's exactly correct. In fact, it was Father Diogo Feijó. I bet you it even says that with the historical details. That'll bump us out to a web page, so let's go ahead and skip that. But anyway, he definitely was significantly involved in the movement, the liberal movement, which led to the request, and he accepted, for Dom Pedro I to abdicate, to basically step down, in favor of his son, Pedro II, who was a native-born Brazilian, and people were really looking forward to having their first Brazilian-born king. But when Pedro I abdicated, this kid with the manly face was only 5 years old, and now he's 10 years old, and he's got 5 o'clock shadow and everything like that. All right, I'll stop making fun of that. Anyway, so they had to wait until he was old enough to take the kingship. So we entered into a period known as the Regency. And I wonder if this is anywhere. Can we look around and see anything here going on here? I didn't see it. So there you go. But basically by the Regency, what it meant was this kid was not in charge, but rather the group of people around him, that his political circle was in charge. So anyway, lots of talk there about monarchy, kids with beards, and regencies and everything. So we're going to move forward, and I'm probably not even going to hit the play button yet because there's a lot more kind of to look around and see. But one of the things we definitely need to talk about, and it's what we're going to be playing first, primarily through and with and as, etc., are these wars. We begin the game with 2 revolts or wars. One here in Grau-Pará, known as the Cabanagem War, which I think was named after the huts of the Indians who lived in this area. From my reading, the primary cause of this was really a sort of diminished importance of this area as Brazil's exporting of sugar decreased and coffee increased. And I think we should have some coffee routes going here somewhere. I guess other people. Okay, so yeah, this is actually this is not historically accurate. America was the largest consumer of coffee, not Britain, from export perspective. We're making a lot of money, so that's good. Historically accurate. Anyway, as coffee shifted more to the south and southeast and the significance of the north, people in this area just began to feel kind of disconnected. They were left alone. They were ignored. They were not given as high. They were poor. And so the Cabanagem War broke out in 1835 and lasted until 1840. Whereas the Farrapos, this is where we see here this ragamuffin, right? Like they were dressed like ragamuffins, basically, for their clothes. Similar kind of a deal, where as the centralized power of the empire began diminishing and becoming less relevant, originally the various localities were like, we want more autonomy, which they got. And then when they got their autonomy, they're like, okay, why do we even report to you at all anymore? And so this Rio Grande do Sul area rose up, and I might be getting this wrong, but I think a lot of it was around beef jerky. At least that's what I've read. So someone correct me if I'm wrong here. But there is a major sort of thriving beef jerky enterprise in this area, with a lot of cattle being grown in this area. And the results of their exporting of beef and leather and beef jerky and all that sort of thing gave them a fair amount of money. I am wondering if they have... Okay, here we go, livestock ranches. So that's reflected pretty accurately, so that's kind of cool. And they began detecting that they were sending more money to the centralized state than they were getting. So they were kind of providing for other people, and they're like, well, how about we just provide for ourselves instead? And so this uprising was a bit shorter-lived than the Grau-Para, which lasted for another 4 years. Now, I'm really oppressed here in terms of my actual military capabilities. What do we got? 8, 6, 4. This one doesn't even have a general, so we're going to need to go give that. So I think what I'm going to try to do is hold these people off in a purely defensive fashion for as long as I possibly can. So let's get that going now. We're not advancing, we're going to defend. And this one, I'm going to defend for a bit until we can get this other battalion assigned here. Let's go with landowners. Well, open terrain commander. Open terrain commander. Yeah, let's go with this. Okay, let's go with this guy here. And we'll go ahead and mobilize him and get him moved to this front, but also we're going to stay in a defensive mode while we kind of wait for our numbers to build up and see what's going on there. Okay, I am going to start again. I had barely gotten started at all, but then I realized I did not own the Colossus of the South DLC. Like, what? What's the point of that? It's all about Brazil and South America. So that's been downloaded, installed, started over. So we're going to kind of get started with all the warring and everything that we've talked about already. But that gives us this, because I had mentioned this before a little bit, but now we can get into it a little bit more deeply. And that is the Regency. So because I think I mentioned that Pedro I abdicated, he was taken into a regency. So what we get here is a massive hit to legitimacy, and boom, that's in the tank, right? So we're just going to kind of deal with that, you know, as we can, and kind of let it roll. I'm going to work to put down the revolts, And then we're going to look at some of these other journal entries. Slavery will not be completely banned until the second video, or at least we're going to work on that in the second video. And this magnanimous monarch, I haven't really seen what's going on with this yet. So I'm going to disconnect this. Same thing with integrating the Brazilian nation. We're going to well, maybe I'll just leave it so I get reminded of it. But I did want to make that statement about the Regency. And so in the meantime, we're going to just work to get these revolutions put down and then start talking about slavery a little bit more. Now, something else I'm going to do in the meantime is got a decent amount of money coming in. I'm not really building anything. Brazil was not really industrialized heavily at this point. It was still very much an agricultural economy. And so I've got to do a few things. We need to, well, first of all, we need to turn interests on. I definitely want to declare interests in England, for sure. And then I'm surprised we don't have interests in America. So that should be, well, let's just do both of these. So England was one of Brazil's primary trading partners at this point, and in fact, they financed Brazil's very first loan so that Brazil could pay Portugal, not an indemnity, but basically like, hey, they're declared independence, won independence, and then gave Portugal money to sort of firm it up. And they got that money by borrowing it from England. So we definitely want to have England be a key ally and trading partner, not only for our strength, but for historical accuracy. Also, while I'm fighting these wars, Brazil did have a strong National Guard at this point, as well as a professional army. And, men from ages like 15 to 60 were expected to be a part of the National Guard. I can't simulate that all much more than I am now, but what I am going to do to reflect their interests, their extra attention paid to the military, is basically jack up their wages. That was probably not true, probably not historically accurate, but I think it reflects the spirit of the military focus for now while we get reintegrated. The battle against, we suppressed the rebellion. It was a lot more involved than this, from what I've read, with a combination of both military and peace-making diplomatic moves back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this war went on from like 1836 to like 1845 or something like that. So anyway, not historically accurate, but things happen very quickly in these games. And one of the things that did happen is this option right here, where the rebels were actually welcomed back in, full amnesty, and they even paid off all their war debts. So this Green Poncho Treaty is a real deal, and we are going to do that as historically accurately as we can. This is going to free up my military forces to march all the way up, once we unpause, to fight in Grapara, and I'll go ahead and move everybody to push the front at that point, and we should have statistical superiority. I guess, what are they? They're pretty low manpower-wise. Is that? Yeah. I didn't realize how low manpower they are. Well, sucks to be you guys. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and just push forward at this point and get this all cleaned up and move on with the rest of our historical insights. And there you have it. The Cabanagem War is over. And Brazil is, once again whole. So, it is what it is. And we did that as close to historically accurately as we possibly can, except for the time. Both of these rebellions went on for significantly longer than we see here. So, let's talk about slavery. Slavery was deeply ingrained in the Brazilian agricultural landscape for a long time. If you watch my EU4 videos, there was definitely content there about slavery. Let's go ahead and take a look to see what we have in terms of slaves. Not peasants, slaves. Okay. So, culture primarily Afro-Brazilian. Primarily they came from Africa. Now this Afro-Brazilian would imply that they mixed in, which did indeed happen. However, unlike areas of the American slave South where slave families were predominant, in Brazil, at least earlier on, they were primarily brought in from West Africa by way of the slave trade. And that slave trade does still exist. Now, originally, and I mentioned this in the EU4 series, not only were Africans enslaved, but also South American Indians were enslaved. That was eventually called to an end. The Pope actually ruled, like, you're not allowed to do this anymore. And so that's why we, again, predominantly see African Americans, or excuse me, Africans. And technically they're in South America, so there you go. Technically you see Africans as the primary group of slaves. Now there's a few here. I don't think this is really historically accurate. I would expect to see more, not a ton more, but more of the native population being enslaved, because it did sort of linger. So this slavery section will be the final piece that I work on for this video, number one. And what we're going to focus on is this journal entry here. And you can see here where it says, a part of the British-Brazilian Treaty of 1826, which again were passed, was England really started cracking down not only on its colonies, but also using its diplomatic influence throughout its empire and throughout the world to try and get rid of slavery altogether. And so England passed, or no, I'll say passed, well, I think they did pass a law, but they basically also made it so that they had a right to inspect ships and see if slaves were on them. So there you see, as long as Brazil maintains slave trade, Great Britain may feel justified in disrupting Brazilian vessels carrying slaves on the high seas. So what we're going to work towards by the end of this video is not abolishing slavery, because that didn't happen until 1888, I think, or 1889. But we're going to work to switch to legacy slavery, which basically says, okay, you can't bring any more slaves over. However, those slaves that were still in place maintained, and that was historically accurate. So then, in video number 2, we're going to work towards slavery banned. Now, there's some mechanics here that we can deal with to selectively enforce the ban, which I'm going to do, because what really happened here is Brazil and its landowners kind of paid some lip service to Great Britain's requirements. So we're going to go ahead and do that, selectively enforce the ban. I think that also helps us, yeah, see, it gives us a +1 to this not ticking down. Now, what will happen if this failed? If this fails, get a peculiar institution, renewed African cycle, okay, and then every great power. Yeah, see, that's going to put us a little bit too over the top for my taste. So I'm going to move us as close to 1850 as I can. There's a couple more events I think that are going to fire, and then we're going to try and pass, we're going to try and get rid of the slave trade and call this video number 1 at an end. As we're moving along here in 1840, Pedro II has an event, historically accurate, where he was crowned king too early. I mean, too early by way of his actual age at age 14. Good for us playing the game because we lose the minus 15 legitimacy penalty from being in the Regency period. I'm sure that he was still heavily influenced by people. Hard for a 14-year-old kid to rule an entire empire. But, so that happened. That's going to make this a little easier. We should see... Well, I was thinking we'd see this slavery deal become a little bit easier. Yeah, +1 from Regency period concluded. I thought we got a -1 from still being in the Regency, but anyway. So what I need to work on at this point is how to get legacy slavery passable. Right now, nobody supports it. I suppose I could go for some kind of agitator or something like that. But I don't see any anti-slavery movements where they would bring in a stance on that. So what I'm likely going to have to do, and I think I'm going to kind of push it to a little while, is switch governments here. If I switch governments, I'll lose some legitimacy, but I'll be able to pass the laws. So I'm going to let that simmer for a little bit. We're going to try and get as close to 1850 as we can. Now, one of the things that I'm really not doing a whole lot of is anything. Brazil was was kind of on the cusp of breaking through into its industrial revolution. The various uprisings, the various rebellions, those didn't actually end until like the 1845-46 time period. So I'm trying to be historically accurate. That can go wrong for me if I wait too long for stuff. The rest of the world turns out, and the next thing you know, you'll see like Russia owns all of America or something crazy that, super not historically accurate. But I'm going to kind of chill a little bit. So what I'm really not doing is really much of anything. And we don't have much money coming in, so privatization, private government, or private building doesn't really... I'm not building a whole lot of anything. Just trying to sort of keep... I don't know why I'm here. Let's go here. Just trying to keep somewhat historically accurate. Brazil certainly, I'm sure, had people who were building chairs and clothes and all that sort of thing, but they were still very much almost a colonial kind of economy, where it was producing raw materials, exporting them. Now, what I'm really hoping to get moving along here is this potential journal entry, the River of Coffee, and hopefully we'll pack that one in this video as well. I need to research intensive agriculture for that. I think I'm working on that right now. Yes, I am. Okay, so hopefully that'll come through, but then you notice here that we need, in order to get this, 50 levels of plantations. I mean, I think I'm pretty close to that. But once that happens, bring it back in. So I'm either going to bring it back in for getting... I'm going to probably not even try and do anything with the slavery law until 1845. And I'll bring it back in if we get the River of Coffee. That should probably happen pretty soon here. What are we looking at? 14 months? Yeah, let's fast forward. Okay, intensive agriculture unlocked. But I realize there's still one more piece that I need to have, and that is 50 levels of plantations, which I don't think I have, so that kind of sucks. Alright, what do we have here? Plantations. 12, 16, 20, 21, 29. And that would be 50, but I've got to wait for my dye plantation to come through. So, don't want to have you wait for 9 more weeks. Let's fast forward again. Okay, plantation up, and we get our event. A trickle of beans. I've never seen this one before. Vast potential, large expanse of arable land, perfect climate for growth of valuable cash crops. Wealth may be the key. Okay. So, what are we going to do here? Let us do an export economy will bring us into modernity. Alright, and we got this river of coffee. What is this? Brazil is the lead producer of meat, coffee, and sugar. Wait, at least one of these. Okay. Increase the amount of buy orders for coffee within the Brazilian market by 150%. And Brazil has greater or equal to 125, holy guacamole, levels of plantation buildings. Now, I'd be cool, and I dig the historicity of this coffee focus, but guess what? Nobody wants to buy it. So that kind of sucks. What are our unavailable options here? Austria wants to buy a little bit of coffee. Okay, well, we could welcome Austria into the fold. It's just not that huge of a demand, unfortunately, which is not historically accurate. Especially the Americans were going crazy with coffee. They were the largest importer from Brazil of Brazilian coffee. Okay, so there you go. What I'm going to do is try and just push that coffee dealie off to the next video. It's going to take me a while. Anyway, 125 billion. And I'm not going to build them just to build them. Like, I need to build them so that they actually make money. And maybe I'll look in to figure out and see how I can increase coffee demand. We need a marketing campaign. We need Starbucks. Anyway, so we're going to focus as, again, the final piece on this slavery piece. I was hoping to push as close to 1850 as I possibly could. I'm going to do a save game and then just try and get to 1850 and do it, and then if it fails, I'll roll back. Okay, I might finally be able to make this work. Government is super high legitimacy due to a recent election. I could go ahead and switch to a super lower legitimacy government to get slavery changed. However, it does seem like they're... Where did he go? There we go. So they're... Well, okay, abolition... Is he going to be up... Is he going to only want to let slavery be banned? That would be difficult. Let's go ahead and see what happens with that. So the... Do we have an abolitionist movement? No. Okay. I thought he would start one. Okay, I have no idea what this is. We'll put this down for now. Didn't it say he was gonna start an abolitionist movement? Okay. Alright, well, I'm gonna have to just ignore that and switch on over to my nasty 37% government. I suppose I could wait for an election to happen, but we're gonna get, I think, a little bit too close to slavery timing out here. So we'll go ahead and switch over. We'll take the hit on legitimacy for that. And now I should be able to go ahead and push for legacy slavery. So again, we're not going to ban it outright. That's going to come later. So we'll see how this is going to go for me. I shouldn't have any stalls because I don't see anybody like crazy opposed to it yet. So let's hope for the best. The slave trade was stopped. Again, slavery not banned, but the slave trade was stopped around 1850. We are getting closer, and I'm ping-ponging back and forth between success and failure. And I don't know, it's kind of cool. There's a little bit of historical accuracy there in that this was not an easily decided upon change. I really don't have that much support for it. The Liberal Party is in the minority, clearly. I mean, if I went and well, okay, up to 60, that's not too bad. But, so I don't know. That's kind of cool. It's annoying because I've ping-ponged back and forth between 10 and 22%, like 7 times. But it would be kind of cool if it inched up there, and we're only midway through in the drafting phase. So, yeah, I didn't need to really bring you back just to say, oh, it's not done yet. But I've got high hopes. And maybe we'll do it right at 1850 for the super historical accidental accuracy aspect of it. That'd be pretty cool. I was hoping not for this, but this is a historically accurate event. We are still pushing the slavery law. It's 1851, so we're past time. However, at the unfortunate passing of Gaspar de Braganza, there's no male heir, and so Princess Isabel was indeed the next in line for the throne. So we are going to do that, oink, because that is super historically accurate. I have no idea what this is. Will complete if Brazil does not have legal guardianship. It's been heir to the throne for 10 years. Advance by 3. See, I don't want this magnanimous monarch to advance. I want Pedro to die. Okay, if completed, the progress bar will advance by 3. Pedro loses. She loses herself? Okay. If completed... So how does it complete? Will complete if does not have legal guardianship enacted, has been heir. Will fail. Okay, that's probably what we want. If does not have an active or is not the heir. I'm going to have to figure this out. All right. And this is probably going to take a while. It's probably going to push me through to video 2. Let's try and get this dumb slavery law passed. Last thing. Oh, there we go. At last. It passes. All right, let's pause because we are going to get this wrapped up. And I am very happy that this happened. So, legacy slavery passes. Now, remember what this is. This means slavery still exists. It is not banned. However, the slave trade is over. So no more new slaves can come in. And we got a little event here, which is kind of cool. With the slave trade banned, the Royal Navy, British Navy, can no longer harass our shipping, drastically has improved our diplomatic relationship, and the final voyage of the last slave ship is complete. So, slavery is not over as far as a story within Brazil, but this video is. Now, let's take a look at the nastiness that's going on here, because this is going to kind of set things up for video number 2. Now, right around this 1850 time is when the industrialization of Brazil really began to pick up steam, pun intended. Obviously, there's all these market accesses. I need railways. We've got lots of pops that are living below the standard of living. One of the reasons why I did that, probably not historically accurate, maybe a little bit, is I jacked up taxes, because it turns out that peasants, if you just let them chill, are like, no, bro, we're good. They don't want to move. I saw that problem happen with homesteading once in a different video that I did before. Where can I do that at? Let's just choose any state. Yeah, zoom in here a little bit. We're paused. There we go. Where's Pernambuco? There we go. Okay. And so if I look at the population here, no, let's not do that. Let's do subsistence farms, okay, for peasants, right? And we pop open peasants here, and we look at them. Okay, this is good. Now, previous places, this job satisfaction was like in the 60s and 70s, and that is no bueno, because they won't move. And so all of your new businesses will just sit there and be like, we can't hire anybody. And I'm like, well, I've got 50,000 peasants, and they won't move because they are too satisfied. So there you go. So I jacked up their taxes to basically, have them struggle. So we're going to try and get a lot of industrialization going in video 2, but I won't spoil that. Let's go ahead and call it now. Thanks for watching Victoria 3, video number 1 segment. Paradox Interactive Historical Playthrough Mega Series Portugal to Brazil. We are fully Brazil for the rest of the series. I'll see you next time.